Mother Teresa has to be one of the most resilient saints in the history of the Church. In August 1946, Mother Teresa made the decision to leave the security and comfort of her convent in Loreto and serve the poor on the streets. Among the poorest of the poor, a lone nun on the Calcutta streets. Many watched as the lone woman, dressed like a poor Indian, living in the alleyways and mean streets of the slums. Even one of her most strongest supporters, Father Michael Gabrick, a Jesuit priest from Yugoslavia and a member of the missionary group whose actions first influenced Mother Teresa as a young girl, was puzzled by her actions. He candidly admitted in an interview, "We thought she was cracked." Hi, and welcome to another video. In August 1946, Mother Teresa was a Loreto sister and working in St. Mary's School in Calcutta. She had earned a reputation of being cheerful, hardworking, and charitable to other people. The political situation in India at the time, however, was very tense. Working with the Congress was the Muslim League, led by a lawyer, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. The League was pressing the Congress for a separate homeland for India's Muslims, which was to be called Pakistan. The new country was to be formed from a partition of India. On August 16, 1946, a day that was to cause serious repercussions in history, the Muslim League called a meeting in Calcutta. The speeches given by the League leaders inflamed an already passionate crowd, and this political situation in India at the time was very tense and flammable. As a result, for the next 4 nights, the city was a scene of bloody riots between Hindus and Muslims. The city came to a halt, and the streets were filled with the bodies of the dead. Women, men, and children, all wounded, cut by the deadly blades of knives, all left on the streets to die. By the end of it all, 5,000 people were dead and 15,000 were wounded. For Mother Teresa and the children she looked after, this was a disaster. This meant that there were no deliveries for food. And faced with the prospect of starvation with the 300 children which she looked after, Mother Teresa broke one of the cardinal rules of her order. She left the convent to look for food. Years later, she described the scene. "I went out of St. Mary's. I had 300 girls in the boarding school and nothing to eat. We were not supposed to go out onto the streets, but I went anyway. Then I saw the bodies on the streets, stabbed, beaten, in strange positions, in their dried blood. A lorry full of soldiers stopped and told me that I should not be on the streets. I told them I had to take the risk and come out because I had 300 girls who needed food and were facing starvation. The soldiers, however, had rice, and they drove me back to the school and unloaded all the bags of rice they had for the girls in the school." Perhaps all the dead bodies and the violence was a turning point for Mother Teresa. However, there have been many theories as to why she left the convent. She had a new resolution. She would leave the convent, but she would keep her vows. She also wanted to start a new order of nuns who would serve the poor in the slums. Leaving the convent for Mother Teresa was not easy. As she would later come to say, it was even more difficult than leaving her own family and homeland. On 21 December 1948, Mother Teresa left her small room on the second floor in St. Joseph's and set out to Mauli Ali to begin her work. She was wearing a white sari, but she was not wearing it as a normal Bengali woman. She had it wrapped around her. Completing her habit was a small black crucifix attached to her left shoulder by a safety pin. Under her rough leather sandals, she wore no stockings, and she packed a meager lunch, which she carried with her into the slums. Mother Teresa visited as many families as she could. She told them she was to start a school right in the area where they lived. As a result, several of the parents promised to send their children to her the next day to attend their first lesson. The next day, she was back in Mortigia, and she was happy to find several children waiting for her. Trying to find a suitable place with which to begin their first lesson, Mother Teresa found a huge tree with a nice opening clearing, with which she conducted her first lesson. Without a blackboard, without any desks, without any chairs, Mother Teresa took a stick and wrote it down in the mud and taught the children, who watched very closely and attentively. As the children squatted and watched, she traced the letters of the Bengali alphabet. Mother Teresa had made a start, as she would later describe it, starting right from the ground. It became one of the defining concepts of the missionaries of charity. Soon, the number of children attending multiplied, as it became known that there was a school which was opened in Mortigia. In time, the sound of children reciting the alphabet competed with the sounds which were normally found in the slums. After conducting all the lessons for the day with the children, Mother Teresa looked for a suitable place where she could eat her lunch. Once, when she stopped at a local convent to ask if she could take a meal there, the sisters there, mistaking Mother Teresa for a beggar, refused. Instead, they directed Mother Teresa to the back of the convent under the stairs where all the other beggars ate. In later years, she would never mention which convent it was that turned her away. You know, I have to say, it's really heartbreaking in a way to find out that there are religious who actually behave in this way. Not saying that I'm perfect or that they should be perfect, but it is hard to actually witness a situation where a religious actually turns away the poor, those who Christ was very passionate about, and those who God defends throughout the Bible, the weak and the vulnerable. In my opinion, I just feel that it's better that one does not be a religious if they cannot actually display or have charity for the vulnerable, for the poor, and for those in very difficult circumstances. And I have had friends who've actually struggled with this in their lives when they've seen religious acting badly. Of course, they are people, they are human, but it really does crush you inside to actually see something like this happening and to hear of a story like this. I can only imagine how Mother Teresa could have felt. But the religious are not perfect, like us. They also have faults. I just feel it's something which is very potent and very destructive to the faith when you actually see it firsthand happening to someone. Even Father Michael Gabriel, a Jesuit priest from Yugoslavia, and one of the missionaries who inspired Mother Teresa to come and work in India as a young girl, was puzzled by her actions. He candidly admitted in an interview, "We thought she was cracked. She often gave her bus fare away to those who needed it more and walked home." As people realized what she was doing, they came with money, favor, and help. The bus driver who drove the route to St. Joseph made her sit next to her so that she would not walk all the way to St. Joseph on foot. A former teacher in St. Mary's came to help Mother Teresa in the slums to help her teach the children as the school grew. At one point, she went to a local parish priest who was very much impressed by what Mother Teresa had accomplished, and the parish priest gave her 1,000 rupees. And this was a princely sum at the time. And this allowed Mother Teresa to rent 2 huts for 5 rupees each. She later on said, "Our Lord desired me to be a free nun, covered with the poverty of the cross. But today, I have learned a very good lesson. The poverty of the poor must be very difficult for them to bear alone. I walked and I walked until my arms and my legs ached. I thought how they must also ache, body and soul, looking for home, for food, and for rest.